I hope everyone's alright. I hope everyone's had a decent week. It is freezing this morning. So cold. So cold. Yeah, we've got quite a bit to go through this morning, quite a bit to get through. So let's start from the top. Euro USD, we've seen the US dollar gain a fair bit of strength and push on recently. What we've also seen is the pair find support yesterday, and that looks to be holding so far this morning. What I would anticipate is a drive from here back up to 120.50 before then coming back to the downside. I didn't want to do that. That was the level that I actually wanted to keep in place. But we found some support, very much anticipating a drive back to the upside as a result of this. And then for price to eventually roll over and come back down. This, I think, we'll see quite a sharp push up this morning that we should be mindful of. Not necessarily to look at it to take advantage of, but without a doubt to be able to have that view in mind that the short play from 120.50 or from 120.10, 120.20 makes a lot of sense. Also, if we drop below the lows at 119.50, then obviously that short opportunity is going to present itself. Down to the whole number, I would very much expect us to find support at that number. And at that level, that's been quite a key area, a big area of previous resistance. So it's only natural that we then come back, find that area as a support region before potentially pushing back to the upside. I don't necessarily see that all this dollar strength is going to last forever. There are a few pairs that need to pull back. Euro USD needs to come back. Aussie USD, I'm not actually involved in this position. I don't know why that's there. Aussie USD needs a pullback on the higher time frames too. We can see that relatively clearly. Gold obviously has seen its drops occur. We've then come back into this region. That will now pull back to 18.30, at which point more than happy to short away from that. So yeah, back to Euro USD. We have potentials for longs above 20.50. I do think we'll pull back to 20.50 and then roll back over. 2020 and 2010 might be the regions that we're looking at for potential moves today. A push back into this region and then a sell-off. Like I say, come a little bit higher into that 2010 region. Push back up, sell off, break back above. Definitely got 40 pips up to 50. From 50, it's pretty much open season all the way back to the highs. Certainly back into 122. So a lot of potential that is there with Euro USD. We just need to be patient for those that are in it. The downside looks as if it will probably prevail. For those that aren't, we've missed that boat. We just need to wait for it now. Euro yen done nothing and just floated around for days and days now. It's starting to get a little bit frustrating in the sense that we could really do with seeing some momentum come into it for pretty much most of the week. Monday, I'm pretty sure we saw a drop. But the rest of the week has been non-existent. Nothing's really gone on. Nothing's really happened. And so with that in mind, we are looking for a break of the consolidation. I do just want to get below 126. If we can get below 126, then I think we should see a price drop off. It's difficult to know whether that's going to be the eventual possibility, whether that's going to be the eventual outcome. As things stand at the moment, we're not getting any real indication of buying or selling pressure. The yen in itself isn't particularly strong either. And we're looking at like CAD yen, for instance, that's just been pushing to the upside. Obviously, pound yen, we'll get to the pound in a minute. It's not been particularly great for the yen. With regards to euro yen, obviously, if we do break back above 26.70, which seems like a big ask for the rest of this week, then we have the long back up. If 126 goes, then obviously we have the short down to 24.50. That's not going to come good this week. You might be lucky to hit 125.60, 125.50, fire into somewhere around these lows back down here. This little support area that we've got in play. But the pair doesn't have it in it to drop that far. As things stand, obviously, we are still very much in this territory. We are still making these higher highs and lower lows and lower highs. However, price is just stalled. The 4 hours shows it. We're just ranging, but we almost expected that. I know that if we come over as well, we've also used this area before. So it's not a surprise that we're caught in this region. It's not a surprise that we're stuck here. It's just going to be a case of how long potentially are we going to be floating around this area before we see price either break to the down or the upside. Either or makes no difference. Just which direction are we going to get some form of bias come into play. The daily still looks good for the downside. The weekly still looks good for the downside. Everything about it is suggesting that the 4 hours looks good for it, is that the downside is the most favourable option. It's just whether or not we actually see that move occur. It would be nice, but who knows? Who knows at the moment? So yeah, we shall wait and see how things progress and how things play out surrounding that. And Euro USD, I think both still have downside potential. It's just how long it's going to take to see that realised. So what else do we have? CAD yen was a short that I was looking at. We were around 82.20. You can see the previous range that we've been involved in. You can even move this level further down. It was just to find an area of potential support. But you can see where we've been ranging in this pair. You can see every time we're coming down into this range low, back up, range high, back down. We've seen the breakout. We've just seen the accumulation, but we've not really gone anywhere. The Canadian dollar had a pretty poor day yesterday, but we've broken above this region now. So it's whether or not we're going to see a false breakout situation occur and a push back to the downside, or we're going to come and retest this 82.15 level, 82.20, and see that push to the upside. There seems to be no real momentum or direction to that as things stand. US dollar CAD is also in a similar situation. Obviously, we had been very much anticipating the break to the downside. Doesn't seem to have come. We rejected from 27.80 back above 28 yesterday. Started to see that push up all of yesterday. We've pulled back as the dollar seems to have weakened off. We've seen Euro USD. We've seen gold pull the same kind of movements. Aussie USD, the same type of movements. So we've seen that little breather taken. However, it does look as if the upside is probably still going to prevail on these pairs as things stand. So I would very much anticipate at some point shortly to see pairs like dollar CAD and Euro USD to start to drop back off, dollar CAD to rise. If we can get that break back above 128, then I think we put ourselves in a very good position surrounding dollar CAD. In fact, at 128. Also just want to delete that level. Not too interested in the lows at the moment. Don't necessarily feel like they're going to be found. We've got Euro Yen in at 126. Not so bothered about Euro USD. Aussie CAD. I have been sat and stuck in Aussie CAD for days now. Nothing has happened. It's not really doing anything. It's not going anywhere. But we seem to have established a little bit of support again at 97.30. Previous support region. That is seemingly driving a push to the upside. It's not the fact that I believe that the Australian dollar is particularly strong at the moment. Just feel like the Canadian dollar isn't very, has had a little bit of a breather. Obviously, there are CAD data out later this afternoon that we do need to be mindful of. Obviously, we have Canadian employment data. This would be a laugh to see if it's any worse than yesterday's speech. And then obviously non-farm payroll. So we need to be risk-free in whatever positions we're in by the time lunchtime rolls around. So yeah, with Aussie CAD, we're currently just sat in no man's land. There's not a great deal going on. So we just need to be a little bit patient and a little bit mindful. We're still very much stuck in the range that we highlighted on Sunday and Monday morning. Again, we've just tested the lows, not done anything as a result. Do I believe that there is still downside potential on on dollar CAD and Aussie CAD? Yes, very much so. It just depends how long it's going to take us to find that potential. Aussie New Zealand, I feel like my feelings have been very clear. Now not involved in these positions, have taken profit. Like we were talking about yesterday, when we started to break back above this region, it was time to start making a serious decision as to whether or not to stay involved in those positions. We are starting to see the New Zealand dollar kick on a little bit this morning, a bit of momentum come in. I do believe that this 106.20 level will hold strong, hence the reason of still potentially having a potential short bias on Aussie CAD and Aussie New Zealand. However, we shall wait and see. With Aussie New Zealand now, until 105.90 goes, there isn't a trade to take. There's nothing there. We can use this level of previous support as resistance, see that turn into that role reversal situation. But really and truly, for any real downside move or downside potential now, you need to get below this level. We've seen now it hold as support. resistance and support. So therefore it is becoming a solidified solid level for us at the moment on these lower time frames. So we do need to be mindful of that as we move into the rest of this week. Euro yen still just cannot sustain any momentum. So yeah, we shall see how that plays out. Pound New Zealand, or just a pound in general, needs no introduction. We saw interest rates yesterday that were far more positive than really and truly the monetary policy had any right to be. Going back through and then even just looking at the information that was provided out, there was no real information to suggest that anything's positive. They ruled out having negative interest rates and then have decided that that is something that they are actively telling people to look into and for banks to pay attention to and start putting in place the infrastructure to be able to do that. So it's a lot of mixed messages coming out. They're saying that you shouldn't read into it and that it's not necessarily going to happen. It's just there's a lot of mixed messages. They also seem to think that we are going to have some incredible upturn in our economy, and GDP is going to rise massively throughout the year, and by the summer we'll be back to normal. It's just I don't see how that can happen. Not in the slightest, but they must know something that we don't. The short back to 189.80 makes a lot of sense. We saw a huge push up, 300 odd pips to the upside from yesterday's movement. This is when the news was announced, or just before. Push up 260 pips. That pullback into that 80 region makes so much sense. However, it's a risky play. You've got 110 pips on offer. You can take from 80 down to 80. Would make a lot of sense. It does, however, obviously come with inherent risks attached to it that we do just need to be mindful of. If that is a potential position that you are planning on looking at. But the pound in general kind of demonstrated already that it needs to see these pullbacks. Price stalled completely. We're now going to start to look to break these consolidations, come back and make these lower swings. Pound Oz is another one. There's certainly still a potential position here. Back into like previous lows, see a new swing form. If we are now looking at pound strength and looking at that push to the upside as a potential, then a higher low and a new swing low being formed around 78.90 on pound Oz makes a lot of sense before seeing that push to the upside. Again, you've got a simple entry as you break below the consolidation. So if you were to set like a sell stop at 79.60, you should have the momentum needed and necessary to push yourself into 78.80. Pound yen is another one. Obviously, we've already established with CAD yen and Euro yen that we've not seen loads of strength surrounding the yen at the moment, and as such I wouldn't expect such drastic moves from the pair, but again the potential is there to come back into 43.50 around these previous lows. We can pull that through because you can already see that is also where we've acted as support, so it makes a lot of sense for the pair to come back and retest that level before seeing that potential push back to the upside also. So there are plenty of opportunities surrounding the CAD at the moment. The yen and the pound, sorry. See how long it's been since. So the one thing with TradingView that I find annoying is that it only ever saves your designs around those particular tabs. So what were we saying just now? That we would need to come back into this previous region to fire back down into there. A break back below would bring you into 42.15. If we take a look to the upside, just need to come out to the 4 hours because it's been a while since we've been down here. Then we can already see that 145, that potential area there. Then obviously a break back above that level into previous highs at 146.50. Come back down. So we've started to build up a little picture. We're in this little window now, in this little area. We can clearly pull this all the way through, see how it is acted before, where we can see that these previous highs. So again, it's no shock that these levels are being found. We find these levels time and time and time again. So it's no surprise to us that these levels are being picked out every time we come into the market. So we've got potentials, we've got options all around us at the moment. It just depends what is going to present itself. I personally prefer pound New Zealand as being the best potential position that is on offer currently, with that drive back down to the lows. Gold, we've come and retested the area breakout. I do see us pushing a little bit higher before we potentially come back. That push into 1830, 1835 makes an awful lot of sense in my opinion. It just depends whether or not we are going to get there. If not, a pop back below 1802 would certainly put us into a good position to take potential shorts away from if the US dollar decides to gain its strength all over again. We're not going to bother going through Aussie USD. There was another position that I wanted to go through, but in the life of my head, I cannot think what it is. 2 seconds. What was it? Wasn't that? I remember. CAD Swiss. I actually thought I would probably have it already saved on a chart, but it doesn't seem to have happened. CAD Swiss, we've seen a massive push up. Certainly for the pair also. I mean, in real terms, it's not overly big, but for the pair, it is a big move. And we've started to see a little bit of an inkling that the pair might be ready to fall back a little bit and start to see some form of a retracement. So that drop below the lows would certainly give ourselves an indication that we are ready to see a push back to the downside. 107.50 down to 107 makes a fair bit of sense given the drive up and the lack of pullbacks thereafter. Just be mindful you might need to get out of position 10 pips earlier at 107.10, so take that into account when looking at potential risk to reward. However, you will comfortably get away with kind of a 15-20 pip maximum stop loss on the pair, given a decent 4-1 on a risk to reward basis. So there is potential all over the place at the moment. It just depends what is looking as if it might present itself to us as we move kind of later into the day. However, like I say, the euro to sell off again does still look quite probable. CAD Swiss to sell off and US dollar CAD longs look quite favourable, unless of course we can break below this 80 level. Personally, just don't see it. Aussie CAD we can leave. Aussie New Zealand, we know we need to get back below lows. Pound New Zealand, if we can drop off below 80, then I'm pretty sure we will find the lows, and gold below 1802. So I hope everyone has a decent day, whatever it is that you are up to. I've got quite a busy one ahead, so I need to shoot on and get my work done. But I hope everyone has a decent day, and I'll catch up with people later on. Hope you've had a good week and a decent weekend ahead.